In this lesson, we're going to look at a sample SOAP-based service and also an easy way to publish that service. You're looking at the working file ranservice.java. This contains the source code for the SOAP-based service. As you can see, it's fairly short. Let me go over the key parts of the code, and then we'll look at how to publish this service. So the import at line 1 for web service is the critical one here. For best practices, the code also has the annotation at line 2, web method. We could actually dispense with the second one. So let me explain how these annotations are used. If you annotate a public POJO class, in this case, ran service, as a web service, it's thereby a SOAP-based service, and all of the public methods encapsulated in that class become service operations. Now, it's best practice to annotate those public methods with web method. A better annotation actually would be web operation. Operation is the more generic language neutral term, but in Java, and for that matter in C#, web method is the annotation used. So there are two of these, one at line 5, another at line 6. A couple of points about these two methods. Notice that they are mutually independent. So for example, next1 does not call nextn or vice versa. Next1, as the name suggests, returns a single randomly generated integer, and nextn returns a list, a Java array of integers. So the two methods are independent of one another, and they also don't depend on any fields. So in programming language terms, these two web service operations are so-called pure functions. They depend only on any arguments passed in. Next1, of course, has no arguments. Nextn has a single argument, which is the number of integers to be generated. In order to keep the cap on that number, the implementation uses a constant called maxrans, currently set to 16, so the greatest number that a client could receive would be 16. So this code is POJO code with a few annotations. It will compile as usual using core Java 6 or greater. Now let's look at the publication options. This working file is called ranpublisher.java. By the way, both the publication code and the service code are packaged up in a jar file for ease of execution, and that's also included among the working files. So to execute, it would just be java-jar ranpublish.jar. We'll worry about a client in the next session. The import at line 1 is for the endpoint class. This is a wonderful utility class that makes it easy in development to publish a SOAP-based service. In production, we'd use Tomcat, Jetty, or the equivalent. Once again, we have a POJO class, in this case ranPublisher. Any name, of course, will do. And the critical lines really are two. Line 3 sets a URL. So in this case, localhost. I'm going to run the client on the same machine as the publisher. I pick a port number, easy to remember, but also probably free. 8888 is a good choice. And then a URI, in this case, /rs for ran service. But any URI would do. A little confirmation message printed to the screen, and the important line then is for endpoint publish. The first argument is the URL. The second argument is an instance of the service. So this is straightforward. This will publish the service indefinitely, so you'd have to kill the publisher at the command line using Control-C or the equivalent. Now, an important point should be made. The very same service, ran service, can be published with endpoint, but also with Tomcat or Jetty without a single change to the service itself. So there's a very nice separation of concerns here. Writing the service is one concern. Publishing the service is then a different concern, and the Java API makes it very, very easy to separate those two concerns.